us now is Dr. Toro Yates, who serves as the Vice President for Student Development and Enrollment Management at Hostos Community College. He brings experience as Chief of Enrollment Management at four-year private and public institutions. Dr. Toro Yates also works with urban school districts' guidance departments to use data-driven solutions to improve student outcomes in areas such as college enrollment and career-focused initiatives and activities. He is a first-generation college student and Jersey City native. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to EdCast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. One of the things we began to talk about is, of course, some of the downsides of the pandemic, of which there are many. But in terms of education, we know that enrollment and retention are things that people always talk about. How has Hostos been affected in terms of enrollment and retention?
Sure. So community colleges nationally started to have issues with enrollment before the pandemic. So what happened during the pandemic just exacerbated some of the trends that were already kind of percolating, if you will, with enrollment. So one of the things, if we look at the amount of students that were graduating from high school, that was something that's been talked about for many years. And then we really started to see that impact. And then once COVID hit, it was just something that was not, it wasn't a way to plan for it. And what colleges and universities have been trying to do is just recalibrate and look at it. We are having to reshape how we think about recruitment and how we recruit students. And you may have heard the term admissions funnel or recruitment funnel. And we're really having to think about how do we re-engage students back to moving towards some of the quote unquote normal ways of doing things. But the important part is how do we introduce lessons learned during COVID? Because I do think that there are some things that some muscle we had to develop that we should continue to use as we plan for the future of enrollment.
So what are some of the things that you have been doing and that the college has been doing in this direction?
Yes. So one of the things is that we have to make sure that we are able to get back into the community and really just engage with students, get engaged with parents, engage with community leaders, engage with churches, engage really with everyone that's involved and let them know that Hostos Community College is a place that we're here for them. And also look for every opportunity possible to create entry points for students into the college. And one of the ways of thinking about doing that is prior learning. So for a student, in any way that they can earn a credential, how can we have those credentials kind of stack, if you will, as an entry point into the college? And then recognize that we have some students that are utilizing going to college as a point to get a credential to work towards a job. But how do we continue to re-engage them and get them to continue to move and earn credits and work towards an associate degree, which can only help their lifetime earnings?
Have you been looking at, in terms of recruitment, are there different ways of recruiting students now post-pandemic? Do we look at different demographics? Are we looking at different groups? How do we recruit now?
So that's something that's it's a hot topic nationally. How do we recruit?
I know. How do we recruit?
But one of the things, the tried and true methods of recruiting students is really just meeting students where they are and giving them the information about how to engage with your institution. But I think one of the things that COVID created for us is opportunities to engage students at a wider reach. So what I mean by that is students that a lesson learned during the first run through dealing with the COVID pandemic was that students wanted information specifically as an individual. So if I'm a student and once I'm accepted into an institution, maybe I live in a certain zip code, or maybe I'm studying math, or maybe I'm an athlete, or maybe I want to run for student government. So once they start the application process, they want information tailored to come to them almost in a specialized way that they receive other types of information. So that's one of the goals. So when we are now moving to, hopefully one day we can get back to recruiting students in person in very large gatherings, their traditional kind of open house and yield events. But the lesson learned is there are students who still want a virtual experience as a part of the way we do events moving forward. So I can envision that we would have an open house But then in a classroom, we can have a teacher having a virtual lecture going on during that time period. Or we may have another room where there are parents that are doing a virtual parent workshop. Or in another room, there may be coaches, athletic coaches that are giving virtual workshops about athletics while we have this in-person event. So it's really thinking about how can we maximize all the different ways of stimulus and connecting to students.
Wow, that's ambitious. That sounds really good. I want to ask both of you something now. We've heard the term reengagement, and reengagement has certainly been used to attract students who may have left, to get them to come back. But I also want to look at reengagement in terms of the students and faculty that we have right now. This morning, I read an article from the Chronicle of Higher Ed that talked about how faculty are saying how hard it is to reach students nowadays, that they're anxious, they're stressed, they're overwhelmed. They seem to be disengaged. They are, if they're doing a synchronous class, they're still not on screen. They're not participating. So President De Filippo, also from your perspective, do you see this as an issue? And what are some of the ways that we can really revitalize our campuses in terms of students, feeling more engaged?
I have to say, Linda, that I have taken, since we came into this semester, to really walk around, to talk to the students, and I walk around a lot, and I stop, I'm very approachable. I'm also very curious, so I ask questions. So our students are there playing the piano. They show me their paintings. They're sitting at a table doing biology class studies together. One of them just yelled out, this young woman who coordinates students with disability, Coco, she says, Coco, I see you in person, Coco. She came to hug me. So I talk with them. They tell me, many of them, that they're happy because the circumstances are such for them, that they are happy when they are the happiest when they are at the college. Yeah. Because they feel, there's a food pantry that's open, there's a library, and there are computers, there's sitting areas, there are faculty and other students that they can talk to. But it is coming back gradually, and we take a step forward and another one back sometimes with this pandemic, but we're moving forward with as much care as possible. And also the VP didn't tell you that they are also mounting a campaign in his area to reach out to students who were there, stopped out, and then come back this semester. So they're reaching out to those students to bring those students back. We're also very much aware that some students are only going to be part-time. And so we need to look at the class schedule so that they can come evening, weekends, that they can complete what they work. We're also creating, through the Mackenzie Scott, jobs on campus opportunities for you each to have your own and mentor them a little bit. I always said, because I used to have them, I used to fundraise in Connecticut, so we had jobs on campus there. And I always have one in my office, and I always said, if this child doesn't have any significant work to do, no playing games in this office, they have to do homework. And you stayed on it, and we had cakes, and they had other departments, little birthday cakes. And at graduation, you could see them. I would meet my wonderful colleagues in the parking lot, and they say, oh, this is for my student who's graduating. And so they're having a little party for that student. And it was because many of them also lack this issue of having a parent that can dedicate and ask questions. Just asking questions. Where are you? When is your midterm? When is your paper due? When is that whatever? Do you know that there's Hulk over here and that you can go over there to get support and all of those things? So I think in multiple ways, this is what they tell me. And they tell me above all, wherever, and that has been throughout, not only here. It was at York when I was at York. It was at Nagato Valley. Here is that what is the best thing you could say about this institution? Is that the faculty care inside and outside the classroom.
We are running out of time, if you can believe that. So I want to go back to Yates for a moment. And I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about that campaign, about reaching out to students. And also from your perspective, supervising the coaches and the advisors, what are you also seeing in terms of how students feel?
Yeah, so thank you for that opportunity. So just to add on to President laid it out very well. When we are re-engaging with students, and then because there was some recent data from the release from the Clearinghouse that approximately 20% of students in the South Bronx have some college, and there's a pool that need to be re-engaged back with an institution. So we're going to have a very aggressive campaign going after those students. And we know that some of those students are former Hostos students. So we're going to create a campaign, and it's radio ads, it's digital ads, it's making sure that we let students know that Hostos is a welcoming place for them. And then it's looking at and working with the SSCU, the advisors, and working with OAA, Academic Affairs, is just really looking for any opportunity to remove barriers for students that can help them persist. We want to utilize data to be able to help students think forward. So if they're going into each semester, they know how many credits they need to kind of stay on schedule. And if that schedule is moving them towards graduation. So we're going to be data focused, but working with the coaches and having them have constant contact with the students and really helping them gauge what do they need to persist and move forward.
Can I just ask you briefly, what are the biggest barriers that the coaches and advisors are recognizing for students right now?
So it really depends, but I think it depends on, it's almost kind of for student, but some of them are really working towards trying to get in specialized programs and really understanding what are the steps that's needed to get into those programs. So that's a great opportunity for us to work with students from the moment they check a program on their application, for us to communicate with them before they become registered as students, and really sharing as much information with them as possible. So by the time they start to engage with the success coaches and they start to engage with faculty, that they are fully aware of the type of majors that they're interested in and the path that they would need to take to successfully navigate that experience.
So we're going to have to wrap it up, but I would just want to ask each of you just briefly one top priority that you have moving forward. Yates, we're going to go with you first. What is your top priority moving forward?
Top priority is working with that re-engagement population. That's a very ripe opportunity for Hostos Community College. And I want to be a part of leading a team that goes after that population and make sure that we let them know that Hostos Community College is a place for them.
Fantastic. President Coco de Felipe's top priority.
Right now, because we just finished with the middle states and and there's a lot of information as we begin to work with another very large group on the strategic planning process that will take place in the fall. We're organizing it, is to make sure we plant the seeds for a future harvest for our future students, so that Hostos continues to move forward in the absolutely beautiful and generous way that has moved forward all these decades in support of our wonderful students. Thank you, Linda, for this opportunity. Professor Hirsch, thank you.
Thank you both for joining me today. And I feel so fortunate to have been part of Hostos Community College as the president was my entire youth. I mean, I have really given my youth to Hostos Community College.
She was a baby when I met her.
I was. But it has been an absolute, the most wonderful place to be and spend a career and know that, and I agree with everything you've said. So thank you both so much for joining us today, President Daisy Coco de Felipe and Vice President Toro Yates.